Welcome to Catholic Views. I'm your host, Renae Kranz. On today's show, we will have Father Joe Vogel back in the studio to tell us his vocation story. If you don't know Father Joe Vogel, then you're going to be in for a treat. And if you know him, we're in for a treat. Either way.
It's a treat.
Way. He is just so much fun to talk to. Very much I would say, straight shooter, but also a very loving priest. So hope you'll stick around for that interview. We have first some biblical bites with Dr. B. Dr. Chris Bergwald.
Hello, Renae Kranz.
Hello, Dr. Chris Bergwald.
How are you today?
I'm a little
under the weather.
But yeah, I'm okay.
We will, even though people are hearing this later, pray for Renae and the recovery of her health.
You just never know.
We don't
this
have
is
to deal
running
with
on
her
Sunday,
sniffling
it might still
anymore.
be there.
Renae, which Sunday is it, speaking of which?
Oh, heavens. It's been like...
We haven't recorded an episode for several weeks.
17th Sunday of Ordinary Time.
Are you sure?
Yes.
How do you show so sure?
Because I watched Biblical Bites this last weekend.
Fine. We got some nice compliments last week. Jane
good.
Bars, thanks for listening and texting me.
Awesome.
And Bishop Barron agreed with us. So
he agreed with us.
Yeah. Not vice versa. So
by name,
sure.
like he named us
Yeah,
specifically?
right. No.
I agree with you, Chris and Renae. That is what Bishop Barron sounds like.
All the time. He does, and that's how he sounds, yeah. Okay, so the gospel, what year are we in?
See?
And therefore the gospel is?
Luke.
You're hitting them out of the park. This is how Luke's got the reading from the gospel according to Luke begins this week. It's chapter 11, verses 1 through 13. We're not going to read the whole thing. Jesus was praying in a certain place, and when he had finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples." He said to them, "When you pray, say, ... So we'll get to what he says in just a minute. But I want to start no. Father, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, ... So he gives the Lucan version of the Our Father, which is a little bit different than the one that Matthew has. It's Matthew's that we have memorized and we know.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to Luke's version, which is just a little bit shorter. But I want to start with those opening couple verses. Jesus was praying in a certain place. So Luke states what on the one hand is obvious. Well, duh, of course he's praying in a certain place. I mean, he's always in a certain place.
Yeah.
But there's something about the fact for me. So we know that Jesus was always on the move, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he wasn't always on the move, but he would often travel from town to town, village to village, etc., preaching. But Luke here specifies that Jesus was praying in a certain place. We could take what I'm about to say, too far, too extreme. But I think one of the takeaways here is the importance of, for us personally, identifying what's my certain place to pray.
Okay.
And it can vary based on where I'm at. So I recently, so it's been several weeks since we recorded because I was on the road. Renae, I slept in, what did I count? 5 different beds within 3 weeks.
You had a heck of a 3 weeks.
I did have a heck of a 3 weeks. It was a beautiful 3 weeks. But when I was in those different places, when I was at my parents-in-law or my sisters-in-law, or when I was at my dad's, or when I was helping out with some formation from religious sisters living at one of their old convents, where was my prayer place? When I'm at home, what is the certain place in which I am going to pray? I think that's a good thing for us to ask. It goes on, and when he finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples." So I've used this verse a lot. Lord, teach us to pray. So I've used that as the opening scriptural verse to talk about methods of prayer. Mm-hmm. But there's another nuance to it that I think is worth pointing out. Teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples. So and this had predates the first century, but in Jesus' time, it was common that rabbis would teach not just how to teach their disciples how to pray, but there were also prayers that were that typified certain rabbis. So John, there was the John the Baptist prayer,
and we don't know what that prayer is.
We don't know what that prayer is. So John the Baptist. So from Jesus. So just as John the Baptist would have taught not just methods of prayer, but a prayer or a group of prayers, to his disciples. So that identified one way you knew that somebody was a disciple of John the Baptist, where they pray the prayers that John the disciple taught.
Right.
And all these other rabbis, Nicodemus or all these other, Gamaliel, whatever.
Right.
Jesus, Rabbi Yeshua from Nazareth, would have also taught. I don't know if that was right at all, but Yeshua. I said it with confidence, so
You
people
did.
would
You
have
should
gone
have
with
just
it.
gone with
But
it.
there's somebody who's listening. That's not how you say Nazareth.
Right.
So I had to admit it. But Jesus would have taught his disciples his prayer as well, and he did. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So the Our Father is what identified you as a disciple of Rabbi Jesus from Nazareth.
Right.
So FYI, that. Now, the content, the one thing I want to highlight. So Luke, Father, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come. Give us each day our daily bread and forgive us our sins, for we ourselves forgive everyone in debt to us, and do not subject us to the final test. So it's a little bit different. But give us each day our daily bread. The word here, and so fitting for now in the Eucharistic revival, the word here actually could be translated super substantial bread.
Yeah.
The bread that Jesus is referring to in the Our Father, which typifies you as one of his disciples, is the Eucharist, Holy Communion.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's something I kind of forget sometimes.
That's right.
Thanks, Dr. B.
You bet.